Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to the Excel RIP XPGDM guest speaker talk series. Today, we have Mr. Samat Uponi with us to share his incredible experience. He'll be talking about demystifying product management in the software world. Samat Uponi is currently Senior Director of Product and Engineering at Rakuten India, taking care of the flagship e-commerce marketplace products. He has more than 17 years of rich experience in e-commerce, edtech, and software networking across startups and large MNCs like Cisco. He's passionate about building software products that touch the lives of millions. Now, he holds an MBA from IIM Bangalore and a BTech in computer science. Let us hear from the man himself about his life journey and his take on the concept of product management. Sir, we are pleased to have you here with us. The virtual podium is all yours.
Thank you, Srishti, for the warm welcome. And hello, everyone. First of all, thank you very much. I'm speaking to all of you from Bangalore, and I presume that you guys are also in the India time zone. So it's 8 p.m. here, end of a long day. I know it's not easy. And I try to keep this discussion very lively and interactive so that you guys don't get bored. Before I start off, my best wishes to each one of you. I hope you, your family, and friends are all safe and healthy during these challenging times. But this is what it is. I would have loved to speak to each one of you in person, but we are here virtually. Let's try to keep this interactive. I will give you enough opportunities to share your thoughts. I'll post questions, we can discuss. One request to all of you is as much as possible, please try to keep your video on so that I don't feel like I'm speaking into a camera. Yeah. So let's get started. Having said that, please use the reactions. If you guys can see my screen, you can just do a thumbs up. I can, yeah. Okay, you guys can see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so that's the topic I'm talking about. So those of you who worked in the software field or have worked with product managers, worked as product managers, this could be really basic, but this is just gonna reinforce your understanding, right? Let's get out the, yeah, this is the introduction. This is the boring part. It's already covered, but I will take you to the fun part of my introduction. So this is also about me. So my favorites, I'm a true blue Bangalore boy. So my favorites, Royal Challengers Bangalore. Yeah, still waiting for that elusive first championship, but Isala Cup Namde. Sherlock Holmes, I've grown up reading Sherlock Holmes, love his deduction skills, and FC Barcelona. Why? Because Rakuten is the title sponsor, proud title sponsor for FC Barcelona. Yeah. My interests, I like drinking and eating anything, reading anything, and traveling to anywhere. And anyone, if you wants to take a guess on what this is, the hat and the whiplash, anybody? No, you can use the chat box if you like. Yeah, that's the hat and the whiplash of Indiana Jones. For those of you who like Indiana Jones, it's one of my favorite fictional characters, and it's also my favorite avatar in the virtual world. So anytime you see me commenting on Quora with this icon, that's me. Okay. Okay. Next, let me introduce about Rakuten and Rakuten Group itself. Rakuten Group today has 70 plus businesses. We're a large conglomerate. We have 1.5 billion users across the world. We have business interests in e-commerce. That's the field I'm from. We have in ads, mobile networks, communication and energy, media, fintech, investments. And you'll see some of the brands that we operate: Rakuten Viber, Rakuten Kobo, Rakuten Wiki, Rakuten TV. That's about Rakuten. Okay. So today's talk is all going to be about product management, right? So I'm talking to about 79 of you. So I'm not sure about your background. So before we start, I'd like to hear from you on what is product management, right? What do you guys think? You can use the chat box, type out, let me know what do you guys think product management is all about. Anybody wants to take a chance? You guys can unmute and go for it as well. Anyone? Anybody? No.
Product management, sir. A very good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Product management is, let's say, to be a mini CEO role, which sits on the intersections of different teams, let's say design, tech, and business, and takes care of a product right from inception to the market launch and till the whole product life cycle.
Thanks, Raj. Did you see my slides? Thanks for making that very easy. So yeah, that's one of the textbook definitions what Raj has shared with us, right? Charulata says it's the management of the whole life cycle of product. Vikram says it ideation to implementation, coordination, and management of all stakeholders. All of these are right. And one of the famous definitions that a lot of people use is it's called product manager is a mini CEO. I also have a very funny take on it. I like to compare product managers to janitors in a company because most people don't realize what janitors do to the company unless the day he stops showing up, right? So product manager is something similar. We tend to do a whole lot of things, small things, big things, medium things, all of that. But let's look at the textbook definition of product management, right? So what is product management? Product management, very similar to what Raj just told us. It's the process of conceiving, planning, developing, testing, launching, delivering, withdrawing products in the market. In today's discussion, I'm going to be focusing on product managers in the software and tech world. Okay, so there are product managers outside of that, but my expertise is in the software space. That's why I'm going to be talking about that. There's another way of visualizing this. This is the famous product triangle. If you see the yellow triangle is the product management triangle, which sits at the intersection of product design, product development, and product marketing, right? A product design triangle, the goal of the product design is design goals, right? Then you have product development goals and you have business and marketing goals, whereas product manager is the owner of the product goals. And later today, we'll be talking about what are product goals, how do you define, and what is the end result of a product goal. But that's where a product management sits in, right? Now that we know about product management, let's go to who is a product manager, right? So again, I'll go with the textbook definition of a product manager, right? A product manager's goal is to create customer value and measurable business benefits, to solve unsolved customer problems, create product experiences that outwit the competition over a sustainable period, right? That is the textbook definition, quite a mouthful, but let me simplify that for you. This is one of the very popular books in the field of product management. Marty Kagan is the founder of the Silicon Valley Product Group. He's a very, very famous person when it comes to product managers. He wrote a book about 10, 15 years ago. It's called Inspired, highly recommended book. There he describes the job of the product manager as to discover a product that is valuable, which means it brings value to business, it brings value to the end user, it brings value to customers. It should be usable. So whatever you build, it should be used by end users. And it should be feasible, right? I don't want to build a kind of a unicorn which is going to fly in the air, right? It's going to be a product that is going to be used by users. So the job of the product manager is simple. It is to discover and build a product that is valuable, usable, and feasible. Got that? Okay, so now the next thing I would like to talk to you about is what is the background of product managers, right? This is something that a lot of people ask me about. Who should be a product manager? Is an MBA really necessary for a product manager? Is a engineering degree very necessary for a product manager? Should a product manager come from a design background? What do you guys think? Anybody wants to take a shot at it? What's the background of product managers? Does anybody come to product management with a degree in product management itself?
So I think MBA is one of the the basic requirement, but it should have some kind of technical degree as well. So technical degree plus MBA would be the ideal stage for Rodman.
Thanks, Anuj. So this is the very famous Venn diagram, right, which is shown to product managers. It's a Venn diagram with the intersection of user experience, technology, and business. This was popularized by Martin Erickson in his famous blog on what do product managers do. Please Google it and look it up. And you will see the date, the year as well. This was written way back in 2011, right? More than a decade ago. This is where product management started becoming a mainstream discipline wherein product managers could combine user experience, technology, and business. And like Anuj rightly pointed out, degree in business management would definitely help because it covers the lower circle that you have. But I have seen product managers coming from all sorts of backgrounds, right? So I created a word cloud of that. So I've seen product managers coming from an engineering background only, from sales, from business analyst background, from customer service, from marketing managers. I've seen even research analysts becoming product managers, right? So pretty much, if you look at how product manager career path works, I try to create a visualization for this. It could be from customer service, business, marketing, operations, engineering. All of them end up transitioning into an associate product manager role, then transition into a product manager, and that's how product managers come out, right? Let's talk about what are the top skills to get into product management, right? something I would like to hear from you. Yeah, Utkarsh says for my previous question, anyone who can envision a product, including only engineers, yeah, that could be one. But what could be the top skills, right? Anybody wants to talk about the top skills for a product manager? Like for an engineer or a software engineer, maybe you need to code, you need to know, have logical thinking, right? So what could be top skills for a product manager?
So basically, a skill that is not a something that can be quantified by degree as such, but something like having you can say in-depth knowledge about technology, or just an overview of it, and able to envision that into a business point of view. So just as you can say a sandwich layer between a core tech team and a business team. So it can be a good product manager, I guess.
Got it. Thank you. Any other answers on what would be
Although
the
there are a lot
top
of skills that are
Hmm?
although there are a lot of skills that are required different on the different UX business and design way, but I think design thinking is one thing that is very much required and talked about as skill for product manager.
Design, right? Yeah. So technology, business, design, those are the top skills. So let me talk about the top skills in my opinion, right? And this is heavily opinionated from what I have seen on successful product managers do. I've created that into two halves, right? The first half, I call it as the hard skills. These are skills which can be taught to training, which can be learned. Knowledge of user experience and design, like Raj rightly pointed out, that could be one. Understanding of business models. How do you make money? At the end of the day, any product that you're doing, you need to make sure users are using it and you need to make money out of it, right? Competitive research, understanding, you remember the definition of product management, the textbook definition, right? Outwitting competitors over a sustainable period, right? That's why competitive research helps. And understanding of web development, this is purely if you want to be a product manager in the software space. It helps if you can understand how software products are built, right? You don't need to know the code, you don't need to be an architect level, you don't need to be a technical leader, but you need to have an understanding of the web development. This is on the hard skills. But there's another very, very important part, which I call as the soft skills of it, right? Unfortunately, the reason why I've put that in quotes is even though we call it soft skills, my personal opinion is these soft skills are even harder to learn than the hard skills, right? So the first soft skill which I would like to talk about is influencing without authority. You can just Google up this phrase. There are like tons of literature over here, and I'll show you some slides later as well. The role of a product manager is such that he has to get things done from people who do not report it. That's the reality of life. You may not have engineers reporting to you. You may not have your business account managers reporting to you. You're not their boss. The mini CEO sounds a very fancy title, but nobody reports to you, right? At the end of the day, you're still supposed to, or at least expected to lead the product to a vision and conclusion. That's where influencing without authority comes into the picture. Leadership and ability to take initiative, right? Very obvious skill. You are the person who's driving the car, so to speak. So you will get people who will tell you the directions. You will get people on probably who will tell you where to go to, navigation, all of that. But if you are not able to take initiative, then the entire product is going to come to a standstill. Problem solving, which is both critical and analytical skills, right? And I'll tell you in the subsequent slides on why problem solving is very, very important, right? We start with any product idea starts with the problem, right? You need to identify the problem, come up with solutions, and then pick the best solution to solve it. Right? That's why problem solving comes. And articulate communication, right? And when I mean by articulate communication, it's not command over language. It's not that you need to speak good English or anything like that. I, for one, work in a Japanese conglomerate. I don't speak any Japanese at all, right? So articulate communication is about how you are able to communicate your entire ask to all stakeholders and get common understanding. And today I'll be covering it towards the end of this discussion on a very small topic on how to get shared understanding, and we'll discuss further, right? And between them, you can see I've put a dotted line, essentially because the hard skills and soft skills kind of merge seamlessly in the day-to-day life of a product manager, right? That's why it's very important that you focus on both of them. I've seen some product managers who are very good on the hard skills, but fail on the soft skills. They struggle to get things out, right? They may have brilliant ideas, but they never see light of the day. I've seen people with soft skills, but not so good hard skills. They still tend to be more successful because they get help, right? As a product manager, you tend to get help from others and tend to get things done. Okay. So let's move to the next area. Sorry if you guys want me to slow down, touch upon any topic, please drop a note in the chat and I'll be happy to dive deeper. I want to talk about a very, very important topic, right? On why do products fail? So if you want to be a successful product manager, the obvious goal is build a successful product, right? You're as good as your product only. But let's flip it around. Why do products fail? Anybody wants to take a chance? Why do products fail? Any reasons, any examples, anything that you want to talk about? Any favorite product failure that you want to talk about?
It could be because of a bad implementation or bad communication of the requirements needed.
Thank you. Thanks, Jagan. So it could be a bad communication of the requirements and bad implementation. So that means the definition of problem could be wrong, or how you implemented the solution. That also could be wrong, right? Thanks, Jagan. Anyone else?
Maybe there is no need for that particular product. For example, I read about a product called Google Glass. That was eventually dropped in the later stages just because there is no need for that particular product. Need is
Thanks,
something
Sarveshwar.
very
Yeah,
important.
thank you. That's a very important concept in the product management world. What you're talking about, the need of a product, right? In product management world, it's called as a product market fit. Very fancy term. It essentially means that whatever you're trying to build, there should be somebody who actually needs it, right? Otherwise, don't build it. That's the fundamental thing that you're saying. Very fancy term, product market fit. You can Google it up, but yeah, that's what you're essentially talking about. That also could be one of the reasons. So yeah, one is the need itself is not there. The second thing could be misunderstanding the need. The third thing could be you understood the need, you came up with a solution, but you badly failed at implementing the solution, right? That could be another one. Quick, one more reason. Anyone else wants to take a shot at it?
So the customer might be using it, I mean, using the product the different way. I mean, you might have intended it to be used in certain condition or in certain way, and customer might be using it in a different.
Got it. So this is again misunderstanding on the customer needs itself, right? So he needs it for something else, you are providing it for something else, right? I'll share a couple of my favorite product failures, right? There's a lot to learn from it. Some of them are kind of funny. So anybody identifies this product? About 4 or 5 years ago, this was all the rage. This is a product. Anybody wants to take a shot at it? You
So it's
can
the
see the
juicer.
product name over there.
It's the smart juicer that was developed in the Silicon Valley
Yeah,
that operated with your smartphone, but it didn't use anything. It just squeezed that packet.
perfect, Shikhar. This is the product. The company name was Juicero. Very fancy launch they had. They had multiple variants of this, just like you have the Samsung Pro, Samsung Pro Max, and all of that, right? You had Juicero and you had multiple variants of it. The base variant costed $400. Okay, $400 for a juice making machine, right? All that it did was you would get these juice bags with different flavors. You would put that inside wherever you see that sticker, right? You put the juice bag. Then you have a smartphone app. You just say that, okay, I need this much juice at this time, and then it would just squeeze it out, right? The funny thing is, you can find this article as well, Juicero Inc., right? So the funny line which the Independent reported, right? So founder Doug Evans once labeled himself the Steve Jobs of juicing, but the realization was that the machine's bags can simply be squeezed with bare hands, right? So why do you need a smartphone and a machine to squeeze out juice bags? That was one of the product failures. I'll talk about one more. So not that the most famous personalities don't get things wrong, right? I'll talk about something. Maybe it was launched much before some of you were born. Anybody wants to take a guess on this? The product name is Newton. Do you know which company produced this?
So Apple.
It's an Apple product. You can see the very famous logo over here. It was launched in 1993. It was a personal digital assistant in 1993, right? It's a precursor to all the smartphones that we had. It failed miserably, right? Anybody wants to take a guess on why it failed?
The technology complexity was not that good enough, like to
Technology complexity, okay.
like to be implemented basically. So the touchscreen was not responsive enough and
Not responsive enough. Yeah, that's
But,
a touch.
Palm had a much simpler product at that point.
There were better alternatives, okay.
So actually, there was an article regarding this about a feature that was included, which was like handwriting recognition feature, which was failed. But I was not having much idea.
Handwriting recognition. Thanks, Jagan. Yeah. One of the, in fact, Steve Jobs himself used to hate this product. Okay. So this was in the brief time when actually Steve Jobs was outside of Apple. He came back. He made a very famous statement, which he repeated again when he launched in that iconic iPhone launch, right? He said, God has given us 10 beautiful styluses. I don't need 11th one, right? So this entire device could only be operated using a stylus. right? And I feel why this product failed, even though it was a very good product, was I think it was ahead of the curve, right? So here we were where we didn't have digital connectivity, we didn't have internet, we didn't even have the World Wide Web spreading as much, right? And you had a personal digital assistant. Maybe if the same thing was launched with the prevalent technology 10 years later, maybe it would have been successful, right? So what does all of this tell us, right? It tells us that good products have to solve customers' problems, right? And this is where I repeatedly tell you that every time a product manager tries to do anything, it should start with solving a problem. Okay? You remember on the skills slide, right? Why problem solving was mentioned. This is the reason, right? You need to ensure that anything and everything that a product manager does ties back to a problem and then a solution. If your problem itself is invalidated or not defined properly, and I'll give you a very simple framework of how to define problems, right? Customers' problems, then you are bound to fail. Moving on, let's discuss about where do product ideas come from, right? Again, please feel free to unmute and speak, or you can use the chat box. All of us have lots of ideas, right? We all want to create that next unicorn which is going to come out of India. So where do product ideas come from? Blogs?
From the daily requirements, sir. Like whatever we are using. So if you find that this requirement is needed, from that the product might come.
Yeah, so ideation, self-ideation, right? So from your day-to-day experiences, that could be one. Anywhere else?
Leveraging the ideas from other industries, similar, similar
Other
ideas.
industries, other markets. Yeah, that's one way of doing it. Given that we are in a globalized world, figure out what works in China, maybe what works in the US, create a Desi variant, and a lot of successful companies are actually started like that. So that could be one. Any other things you could think of? Where do product ideas come from?
Yes, step to create a competitive advantage over our competitors, sir.
Competition, yeah. So competition and competitive advantage, that could be one. So I created a slide, right? And this is a slide which we use internally as well. You can see that ideas can come from anywhere, right? So it could be business requests. So your business account manager could have figured out that, hey, my customer wants this, can you get it done? So he comes to you as a product manager. It could be because of technical tech changes, right? Technology changes. Suddenly, maybe some new browser has, and Chrome, this was recently in the news where Chrome suddenly changed its browser policies, right? So you need to make some changes. It could be market trends and changes, right? This is where competition, market, domains, different geographies, that comes into the picture. It could even come from your team, right? So the team of members that you're working with, everybody has great ideas, you will source it from them. It could even come from end users, right? Be talking to your customers and end users, maybe they will give you good feedback, which leads to good features or good products. And it could obviously come from management, right? So Steve Jobs, for example, was very famous for coming up with product launches just out of his head, right? So that's what used to happen. So this is how the daily life of a product manager looks like, right? So you can see the product manager with all those multiple hands. So any one of you who wants to get into product management, disclaimer, please be ready to juggle multiple hats and if possible, grow multiple hands, right? So this is what you're going to be doing. You're going to be talking to business, quality guys, project managers, other teams, engineers, designers, data analysts. You're going to be talking to all of them, okay? Now, moving on, I would like to move to the next section, which is about goal of a product, right? So I told you the product manager's goal is to build a product that is usable, valuable, and feasible, right? Now, how do you come up with a simple definition of a product goal? Okay, so I'm going to heavily delve into some product management literature. I've tried to keep it as simple as possible. I'll finish the concept and then we can discuss, right? The first thing I want to discuss about is output versus outcome, right? Very simple English words sound very similar, but in terms of product and product management, they are very, very different meanings. Okay, I have a very simple illustration to give you that. So this is input, which is a cup of coffee, right? You pour it into a cup. What is the output? You're basically taking that cup of coffee and sipping it. That's the output. What is the outcome? The outcome is you're refreshed, right? What is the feeling or the end benefit of it? Input, output, outcome. Everybody gets it? Okay. Now, this is from a famous book called User Story Mapping in 2014. Jeff Patton was the person who came up with this entire methodology. So this is the output of it, right? So he says that you start with the customer, you can see the smileys which are unhappy, which are not happy, which are so-so or okay feeling. From there and from all others, you get ideas, right? We spoke about where product ideas could come from. These ideas could ultimately result into products, features, enhancements, specifications, requirements. These are all jargon. We can keep that aside. All of these are called as output. Okay. And then you go ahead into product development, you develop that feature or you develop that product or an enhancement, and you release it into the market, right? It could be a mobile app, it could be a web application, it could be a software that you can purchase, it could be a SaaS product, any software that you release, that is called as an outcome, right? And that outcome will lead to user being happy. It could lead to user being unhappy, or it could be lead to the user being ambivalent, right? And then what we have is something called as an impact. Impact are long-term consequences of the outcomes, right? So understood all the concepts, right? You start with an input, then you come up with output. Output is basically what you're going to release. Then you have the outcome and the impact. Now, what is the product goal, right? The product goal for any product manager is to minimize the output while you maximize the outcome and the impact. Okay? Always minimize output, maximize outcome and impact. So in other words, the fancy term to define this is return on investment. So when people are talking to you about ROI or return on investment, right, this is exactly what they're trying to talk about, right? So talking about scalable products, they're again talking about the same thing. Minimize the input, which is the denominator, while you maximize the outcome and the impact. Everybody clear? Any questions on this part itself? Very straightforward. Anything and everything that a product manager builds, link it back to your North Star metric, which is called ROI. ROI means maximize the outcome and impact while you minimize the denominator, which is the output. As simple as that. If something can be done in 1 month, but you get benefit over 1 year, always go for that. If something can be built in 1 year, but the benefit is going to be in 1 month, never go for that. As simple as that. Seems very commonsensical, but sometimes people do not get this, right? So I'm spending some time over it. Any questions on this part? No. Okay. Yes, Raj.
Sir, when you talk about minimizing the input, is it only in terms of time and resources or anything else, specifically in the software space?
Yeah, it could be in terms of time and resources. It could also be in terms of feature set which is given, right? So this is where the concept of a minimum viable product comes into the picture, wherein don't try to build the entire product that you want in the first release, right? And that's why you will see that almost every software is version software. And this is where they're built iteratively, whether it's mobile app, whether it's a web app, all of these softwares are always built in an iterative fashion. It ties back to time and investment that you're doing, but it also ties back to getting early feedback, right? So fail fast is one of the mantras of Silicon Valley. The reason for that is you don't know whether whatever you're building is actually going to solve the customer problem. Remember that we start with the customer's problem, right? How do you ensure that you get some feedback? You validate it by giving a minimum viable product, send it out, get some feedback. If it works, then build it out on top of it. If it doesn't work, pivot, right? So that's a very famous term which is used, pivot to a different thing. That is what happens. Okay. Okay, let me progress then. I just want to quickly cover, some of you who have worked in the software space may understand this very easily, right? So the software product development process example, usually what happens is I need this. It's usually a one-liner or a paragraph or a one-pager, right? From there, it goes into a detailed requirements document, which comes into what is the problem that we are trying to solve and detailed definition. From there, you write the specification. This is about what are the cases, use cases that I need to solve. Then it comes into user flow. Then it comes into wireframes, which is where you can click and feel and you can build prototypes. Then you are ready for engineering, you build mockups, and finally you release it, right? This is the entire software development cycle. But I want to use one of the very famous cartoon illustrations that you may have seen previously, right? On why everything starts with understanding of the problem itself, right? So most people in product management focus on the right-hand side, which is on the solution space. In my opinion, it's always the problem definition, which is extremely important, right? So let me show you that example. Some of you may have seen it before. This is what happens when you have incorrect understanding of requirements, right? So how the customer explained it. This is how the customer explains it. And very important learning for all of us, never go by what the customer says blindly. Sometimes the customer himself may not be able to explain what he or she wants, right? So the customer explained that probably he would have explained, I need a swing with a 3-tier thing under a tree so that I can enjoy the breeze, right? How the project leader understood it, he obviously wants to deliver so that He doesn't overcommit. So he always undercommits. He says, okay, I'll give you a swing. How did the analyst design it? He designed it by, he just said, I need a swing. So the tree is somewhere in the air, hanging in the air. How the programmer wrote it, you wanted a swing. You never told me you want to use the swing. So I gave you a swing, right? How the business consultant described it, come on, these are business guys. He needs to sell it, right? So I'm going to give you a plush sofa, which is, all the sunny rays coming over you. How the project was documented. Obviously, none of us like documentation or writing it out documents, right? So this is how we document it. How the operations team installed it, right? You said the swing needs to be installed on the tree. I installed on the tree, just a row. How the customer was billed, obviously, we all need money, and this is a grand roller coaster ride that is done. How it was supported, there's pretty much nothing to support. But what the customer really needed, this is where it comes to, right? He just needed a simple tire which he could swing under the tree because he probably likes swinging and relive his childhood, right? That's what it wanted. Now, this is where it becomes very important. How do we solve this entire problem? That is where a product manager comes into the picture, right? He's the person who understands each one of these roles. He's the glue that holds different stakeholders together. Famous jargon, stakeholders, right? That means each one of the roles that you're seeing over here, he's the person who understands it and makes sure everybody has a shared common understanding, right? So now let me go to how do we form a shared common understanding, right? I'll give you a very simple framework of how do we form a very shared understanding. But before that, I would like to hear from you on some of the techniques that you guys may have used, right? Anything that you guys would like to share about in the chat, you can unmute and speak. Anybody? How do product managers, or forget about product managers, right? If you have 3 or 4 people from different backgrounds and you want to get a shared understanding, what do you do? Anybody? No? Okay. Let me, before I go to give you the framework and a tool to do that, right? I want to share something. Maybe you guys have read this book, right? There's a very famous book called Sapiens. So Yuval Noah Harari has written that book, very famous anthropologist. He says that the fundamental advantage that humans as sapiens, Homo sapiens, had over other species, which actually resulted in all of us becoming the dominant species in the world, is the ability to create stories. Humans have this very, very, very innate ability to create stories, right? Each one of us does that. As kids, we've heard stories. In our day-to-day life, we use stories. We love reading books. We watch movies. Everything is a story. Right? And this is very unique only to human beings. You don't see cats and dogs telling stories, right? They don't say that, hey, I want to tell a story tonight. But humans do that. And that fundamentally changed the evolution of humans. The reason for that was we were able to transmit information in a very concise format repeatably. You get what I'm saying? So as humans, what we were able to do is, if, for example, me, Anuj, Raj, and Archita want to have a common understanding, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a short story. That story, once I tell you, it's going to stick with you. You're going to probably go and tell it to 5 other people, to 10 other people, 15 other people. It's a story, so you'll remember. It's a story which people will probably tell in some shape or form, but it's repeatable, right? It's very, very repeatable. Go back to why it held Homo sapiens way back was, if they had predators who were coming, they were able to warn each other, right? Hey, don't go there, and they would create a story around it. Product management probably takes a leaf out of that book, right? So what I'm going to talk to you about on how to form a shared understanding is very simple. It's called a user story. Okay? And many of you may have already worked with it, used it. It's these days very popular in the agile methodologies, right? It's completely separate topic, but they also use user stories. What is a user story? As a type of user, I want to perform some tasks so that I can reach some goal. That's the format, right? There are 3 building blocks to this, and we'll take one block at a time. Okay. First thing is who. This is the first question that a product manager needs to ask about. Okay. What do I mean by who? Who is this product for? Who is this feature for? Who is this requirement for? It could be anybody, right? Who is it for? And who benefits from having the problem solved? Okay. Again, jargon alert. Customers and users. English words sound very, very similar, but in terms of business, in terms of product management, they mean very, very different. Anybody wants to take a shot at what's the difference between customers and users? Are they the same? Are they different? Are they somewhat different? Sometimes the same? Anybody wants to take a shot?
Maybe
Chat or-
for B2C, it is for B2C or B2B. The one company may design a product for another company, but the user who uses the product may be someone very different.
Got it. So in the B2B context, you are designing it for a company and the user who ends up using it is a different user. That's one way of looking at it, Sarveshwar. Thank you. Anybody else wants to take a shot at it? Any examples that you would like to give? B2B software is one. Any other examples?
So I can give a try.
Mhm.
So the difference
Jugal.
between a user and customer is one who gives revenue to us. A user is one who is a new to the product. Let's say, for example, if we take Uber app, the one who has installed is a user. The one who has booked a cab is a customer.
Perfect. Yeah. Thanks, Jugal. That's the textbook definition you just repeated. So thank you so much. Customers are someone who pays for the product, right? Who pays for it. So he could, and pay, again, don't get confused. When I say pay, money is just one aspect of it. Even time. So all the free products that you use, right? You are paying to that product by giving your time. Time equals money, right? So it could be your time, it could be your money. So that's where is a customer. User is someone who ends up using it. Uber is an example. B2B is, software is an example. I will give you two examples which will register with you, right? Like, because I like to tell stories, I'll give you two simple examples you will forever remember in your life, right? Example number one, diapers. Baby diapers. Who are the customers? The parents are the customers. I hope the baby doesn't walk up to the store and ask for a diaper itself, right? So parents are the customers. Who are the users? Again, the hope is that the parents are not using it themselves, they're using it on the baby, right? Get the difference? Customers and users, baby diapers. Second example, dog food. Some of you may have pets living with you, right? Dog food. Again, the dog probably doesn't walk to the store and ask for its favorite snack. It's the dog parent who does that, right? So dog food, the dog parent is the customer, the user is the dog. Get the difference, right? Okay. So that covers the who part of it. Always be very, very clear on who's your customer versus who is your user. Next part, that was the first block, answering the question what, who, right? The second question that I would like you to answer is what. What do they want? What does the customer or the user want, right? That is what you need to answer. Now, this is a very, very, very tricky part, right? Sometimes what happens is people go and ask this directly to the end user or the customer. They say, what do you want? You remember the illustration, right, of the swing? The customer could tell you something vaguely. You just take it, and if you implement it, there is a chance that you will fail. I'll give you a very famous quote, which is an example for this, right? This quote is, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Anybody wants to take a guess at who said this? Very famous quote.
So is
Okay,
it
I'll give you
Ford,
a
Henry?
clue. Yeah.
Henry
Sorry,
Ford?
somebody said that. Yeah, Sarveshwar, that's right. It's Henry Ford. All of you know Henry Ford, right? He's the founder of Ford Motors. He made this quote where he said that if I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Why is that? Because this was in the 1920s. Horse carriages were all the rage, right? So you went and asked an end user, what do you want? They would have probably said faster horses, right? But what did Henry Ford do? He created an automobile, right? That we know as a car today. That's what he did. That is why it is very, very, very important to gather versus discover in requirements, right? Never just gather. You are not a gardener, so please don't go and gather requirements from users. You are a product manager, so you are supposed to discover requirements. Always remember this. And how do I discover requirements as a product manager? With the third and the most important question when it comes to creating products, right? Why do you want this, right? So every time a user, a customer, a business guy, a stakeholder, anybody asks you to do something, start with the fundamental question of why. If you ask why, for example, if Henry Ford had asked those users, and why do you need faster horses? They would have told that probably I want to reach from point A to point B reliably in a shorter span of time, right? Then he would have said, then why do you need faster horses? Can I give you something as an alternative? That's how probably the questioning would have gone through, right? So the third important block is why. Okay. Why could be what motivates the user, what are the needs of the user, what are the business reasons. All of you now can put back the 3 blocks, right? There were 3 questions we asked: who, what, and why. So every time anybody wants you to tell a requirement or try to tell you what they want as a product, you need to ask only 3 questions, put all of them back together. You'll get who, what, and why. Got that? Okay. So let's put this all together, right? I'm going to put that all together by saying, okay, as a potential reader, so that is the who, I want to view book reviews, that is the what, so that I can choose my next book. Got that? So that's the story I'm telling you. That's the user story. As a potential reader, I want to view book reviews so that I can choose my next book. Anybody wants to take a guess at this is a user story for which product or which
Goodreads.
or
Kindle.
Goodreads? Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thank you. You guys have seen my slides. Yeah, Goodreads is one of my favorite apps that I use. I love reading, so Goodreads is one of the favorite things that I look at. Right? So you can put it all together now. As a potential reader, I want to do book reviews so that I can choose my next book. Right now, let's try to do that with some of our famous products, right? To see if you guys understand user stories. Okay, let's try Uber. Who wants to give me the user story of Uber? Just answer 3 questions, right? Who, what, and why. Who wants to take a shot at it? Uber, anybody? No?
I think for who it is, we need to see who wants to travel, like shorter distance. Then what is the mode they would prefer? Usually a small car, and based on the requirement, it can go up to sedan. It rarely goes up to, say, your SUVs. Then why is already answered here, like travel requirement, commuting.
Perfect, yeah. Thanks, Nupur. So can you frame that as a user story now, as a, go in the same format so that you can make it very repeatable, right?
An individual who wants to travel shorter distances and wants a comfortable 4-wheeler ride.
Perfect. Yeah. Thanks, Nupur. Thank you. That's one way of putting that. Anybody else wants to take a shot? I saw some hands being raised.
As a potential rider, I want to book a cab so that I can reach my destination on time.
Perfect. That's very, very, very crisp one, Archita. Thank you very much. So that's for Uber, right? So you guys are getting how to do this. Let's think of something else, right? Maybe one of the products that we use, Swiggy, right? Let's look at Swiggy. I love using Swiggy. We order food. Anybody wants to take a shot at how do we write a user story for Swiggy? Anyone?
As a potential diner, I want to visit hotels so that I can taste different kind of food.
Okay, you're talking about the hotel reviews part, right? Perfect. So as a potential diner, you want to do at the review so that you can go to the next one. Perfect. How about ordering food part? Anybody wants to take a shot at that?
I can.
Yeah,
so
please.
as a foodie, I want to know what all is available in my vicinity so that I can order that particular food or
Perfect.
particular item.
So as a foodie, I want to look at all the available menu options so that I can order it, right? So perfect. So what we could say is, as a hungry user, I want to look at the possible food options that I can order so that I'm able to finish my meal within the next 1 hour, right? That could be one of the potential ways of writing a user story. Perfect. So we are 45 minutes into our discussion. So I want to leave some time for questions and any discussions that you have. I'll stop with my slides. But before I close, I want to tell you what next for product management, right? Because I love books and we went over Goodreads, I'm going to give you 3 recommendations of books. Please find it up. The first book is a very popular book. It's Start with a Why. Right? Start with Why. It's from an author called Simon Sinek. Some of you guys may know him. He's a very, very popular content creator on LinkedIn. If you don't already follow him, please do. He mostly speaks on leadership, but this book, Start with a Why, is very relevant to product managers as well. As I told you, the most fundamental question that we need to answer as product managers is why. It starts with a why. The second book that I'm going to talk about is The Art of Product Management. And this is very true for any type of management, right? As MBA grads, you guys may have gone through 101 of management, where people debate over whether management is a science or whether it's an art, right? So this is a book by Rich Mironov. He talks about the art of product management. This is mainly from a Silicon Valley perspective. Beautiful book. Please read through that. That's the second book. And the third one I would like to share is after Inspired. Inspired was the first one. If you get a chance, please read Marty Keegan's the next book, which is called Empowered. Right. So this is about a few product examples that he talks about. So these are the three recommendations that I will have for you. Start with Why from Simon Sinek, The Art of Product Management from Rich Mironov, and Empowered by Marty Keegan. Okay. So I'll pause for now. I've left about 15 minutes for any questions and discussions that you would like to have. So the floor is all yours. Hopefully it was very interactive and you were able to gather some insights. It could be very basic for some of you, but I wanted to start with very fundamental things that we've done. As a quick recap, always start with the who, what, and a why. So anybody who's a product manager should always build something which is valuable, usable, and feasible. Okay. Yeah. The floor is yours for any questions. Anybody who wants to take a shot at the questions, please.
Thank you, sir. That was a very insightful and interactive session indeed. So everyone, the floor is open for questions and subsequent discussion, of course. So let's start with questions. I think Jagan raised his hand. Yeah, Jagan.
Yes, Jagan, please.
Hello, sir. I was having a look at your LinkedIn profile, and the main in the heading was like head of products of e-commerce marketplace. So I want to understand the different challenges that you face, very specific to e-commerce marketplace product management.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question, Jagan. Some of the challenges that we face, right? E-commerce product management is a very niche space within the entire product management space itself, right? The reason for that is e-commerce is a space where literally we are making money every minute, right? As I speak to you, our products are making money for the company, and our North Star metric, right? What we track day in and day out every hour is the GMV, gross merchandise value, right? The challenge for a product manager over here, especially for in a company like Rakuten, which is 25-year-old company, we recently celebrated our birthday, is that product managers tend to do a lot of tactical things. What I mean by that is every minute that my site goes down, right, I'm losing money. Which means as product managers, you're constantly focused on doing things for the now, making sure for the next big sale or the big sale event which is coming, everything is up in order, doing very small changes, doing A/B testing, running parallel A/B testing. That's what you end up doing. But as a product manager, sometimes it's very important for you to step back, create the entire vision, and break it down into roadmap items, right? That's what product managers do, who will actually chart out a vision and make sure that the entire team works towards that vision. So that's the major challenge, balancing out the tactical part versus the strategic part, right? That becomes very, very challenging, especially in an e-commerce space, right? I presume it will be same in someone who works in a fintech space, because there again, transactions and making sure that the transactions are going all through the day becomes very, very important, right? Whereas if you look at some of the other web applications, maybe not so much, right? For example, if I was a product manager at Goodreads, it's a book review site. Maybe I'm focusing on improving the entire reading experience itself, right? I'm not focusing so much on the tactical stuff. So that's the biggest challenge, I would say, for an e-commerce product manager. Thanks, Jagan. I hope that answers.
Yes, Samath. Yes.
Thanks. Yes, Jugal, please.
So I have a question on competitive analysis and market analysis. So let's say, for example, I want to build a gaming product. So if you take Dream11 as an example, usually for websites and all, I can do a analysis using this keyword search and some Alexa analysis, right? But whereas in Dream11, there are many games, right? Cricket, football, hockey, and so on. So if I want to build a hockey, then how will I get the data, as in how many users are using playing that particular game and so on? I can get how many of them are using Dream11, but I can't get the data inside an app, right? So how will I do that analysis? How can I get that data?
Yeah. So great question, Jugal. So let me answer that, right? So whenever you are doing competition analysis and market analysis, right, there are two parts of it, two broad parts of it, right? One is you are analyzing the competition itself. So whoever are your top 2 or 3 competitors, you want to analyze them. But also a very important part of the analysis should be the end users itself, right? So if, for example, you are working as part of Dream11, then you have access to the data, right? So you have product KPIs, you have user KPIs, you can look at that and then come to an answer. If you are outside of Dream11 and then you are trying to actually get some insights into this, there are a couple of things you could do. There is something called as you can hire competitive consultants who can do that. Of course, if you have the money to do that, that is one way to do that. The second important way is the 2 domains I spoke to you about, right? One was looking at competition. Second is looking at the users itself. Usually in these cases where people want to understand how the users are using inside an app, right? So the in-app metrics is what you want to tap into. What they would do is they would try to create focus groups, they would try to create user interviews and try to observe that behavior, right? So when you can't get to competition, get to the market. That's the one way of doing it. But I understand it's a very, very challenging part to do it, right? Especially if it's a mobile application, very difficult for you to understand. You could tap into some analyst reports to get into it, but I would say that other than user acquisition, in your case, you are mostly focusing on user engagement. So I would probably suggest talk to the market, right, rather than focus on the competition. Thanks, Yugal.
Okay, I have another question as well.
Yes, please.
So basically, the nature of an IT product is that if you sell it multiple times, then we will get more income, right? So that's why people are selling, I mean, business are selling software as a service. So whereas in banking projects and all, companies, big companies apply for tender, right? So how they apply? Is it for, I mean, for the entire product or for selling the services?
Yeah, thanks, Yugal. This comes to the entire business model concepts itself, right? So you touched upon some of them. One is SaaS offering, right, which is a subscription based. Technically, what happens in a SaaS kind of a product is you charge a subscription fees. It's similar to what you do for example, Netflix, right? That's a subscription fees. So you give a subscription, whether you consume the content or not, you will end up paying that much, but you can watch as much as you want. That is one type of billing customers. The other way of doing that is called as a license model, right? So this is what used to be done about 20, 30 years ago. For example, if you wanted to install Microsoft Office, you had to purchase the license key, install Microsoft Office, it was software, and then that license is either valid for 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, lifetime. That's another way of doing it, right? The third business model which softwares tend to adopt is something called as a freemium model, right? This is where you go and subscribe, install the software, start using it, but after a certain point, you need to start paying for it, right? For example, Slack or even Zoom, for example, the software that we are using to communicate to each other, right? It uses a freemium model, wherein for 40 minutes, it's a free thing, but if you need more, then you need to pay, right? The fourth one, which you were talking about, is called as the entire service model, right? So there are 2 ways of doing it. One is time and work based, which means it's like a construction site, right? So if you're building a building, you charge based on time and work, the total effort that went into building that house, you put your margin on top of it and then you sell it, right? This is what used to happen in the local Kirana stores, margin based. The other way of doing that is the tenders that you are talking about, right? So what happens is value based pricing happens. So if your banking software is probably going to result in increase of revenue for banks by 5%, then people will probably start tapping into that margin and come up with the margin based pricing. So what you were talking about, Jugal, is different ways of pricing so that you can generate revenue. It all ties back to the kind of business models that you want to come up with. The reason why a lot of softwares today adopt either freemium or SaaS-based offerings or subscription-based is so that they can scale very quickly, right? Whereas in a banking software, they pretty much don't care about scale because you're trying to sell to a bank. They of course want to have more users, but they're not so much focused on scaling rapidly, right? It's more staggered. That's the only difference. So based on your use case, you can choose your pricing, which suits the best. Thanks, Yugal.
That answers my question. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Yes, Mohit, you had another question. Yeah.
First of all, thank you, sir, for this insightful session. I would like to ask, in today's world, with a lot of focus on digital transformation, AI is reshaping more or less all business functions, and software development is no exception. So I would like to ask, what impact do you think it will have on the product management function in the long run?
Thanks, Mohit. And this we are already seeing in the software industry, right? Where a lot of products are already being powered by ML and AI. Artificial intelligence is all pervasive these days. What is happening is one important skill that product managers are now forced to develop, especially if they're building AI products, is some knowledge of data science. Right? If you're trying to build a data product versus if you're trying to build a software product, there's a little nuance over there. You need to at least understand data science. You need to understand the value of data, and you need to understand how data products actually work, right? So there's a process of doing the data cleaning, then you want to do feature extraction and things like that, right? At least as a product manager, you need to understand that. But having said that, right, Mohit, the other thing which a lot of people are realizing these days is the artificial intelligence as of today is only as intelligent as you would want it to be, right? So humans at the end of the day are controlling the artificial intelligence. And this was I came up with a very famous maybe share on LinkedIn itself, right? Some of you may have watched the Australian Open finals of Rafael Nadal, right? So midway into the third set, you see that match predictor, right? It comes in IPL games and all of that, supposedly powered by AI. At one point in time, it was showing, I think, 96 or 98% in favor of Medvedev. Of course, Nadal had different ideas. He came back and he won. But that shows you the limitations of AI, right? Imagine if there was a tool which actually took a decision based on that AI. Maybe somebody was betting on the game, right? You can imagine what would have been the result, right? So at the end of the day, I think that realization is slowly coming in, that you need product managers. You still need product managers to validate what AI is going to build, and AI is not going to replace humans, right? That realization is creeping in. Yeah. Thanks, Mohit.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you, sir. So due to the time constraints, we would like to close the session. So it is my honor and privilege to extend this vote of thanks to Honorable Speaker, Mr. Samarth Upponi. I would want to start on behalf of our batch for taking out time from his hectic schedule. The session was exuberant, and I'm sure many of us would have immensely benefited with this wonderful insights you shared. Once again, thank you very much for this inspiring session, sir. And we Excellers hope you keep enlightening us with your immense knowledge. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Srishti. Thanks for the kind words. And those of you who would like to connect, please look me up on LinkedIn and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Have a great evening ahead. Thanks for having me here. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.